All right, hello everybody. Hello. I do have comments turned off today. I do want to get through this reading, and this case is just very sensitive. So I wanted to make sure I could actually get through it before, the trolls come in. So I am going to put a sticky note here. Hopefully I will remember. This is the Burnley case. You may not have heard of it. There are actually two plaintiffs here, and what you'll see is that it's a mother and a sister of two people who were unalived in the water because of the United States actions. And they are suing for wrongful unaliving here. So this is a pretty big case. Again, kind of setting out how we deal with maritime law a little bit, but also acknowledging like what these two people were actually doing regarding that boat. So we can see that perhaps the investigation wasn't done properly before the attack was in play. So it is relatively short here. I will read through it again. I'm just putting my sticky note here, everyone. I will read through it. I want comments off, of course, but I will do a Q&A immediately following the reading. So happy to do that. And then I'm just going to do, what should we call this one? I guess the high seas homicide, high seas homicides. Now, of course, we have multiple homicides that had been going on because of that government, but these are the ones that are here in court. So that's how that's going. Let me bump this up just a little bit, even though we really don't need it, because we'll do comments. We'll do comments after I finish it up, but just to make sure everyone can see it okay. So I am going to put down here again Q&A after. All right, so after reading, here we go. It also makes it so that I stay on, thank you so much. I stay on target better too. So that's good. Hopefully everything should be in place here according to my visuals here. Again, I do have the fun thing that we've been doing, which is if we get to 100,000 likes at any point, then I've got a bonus case that I will take all of you through. So, and it's a good one. I mean, they're all good ones, right? But it's a doozy. All right, let's dive in, everybody. We've got the case. We've got the what the issue was here. Let me just put the year, this was just a couple weeks ago that it was filed here in January. All right, let's get started. Introduction. On October 14th of 2025, the United States government authorized and launched a missile strike. I'm going to change this into a miss instead of this word so that we don't have any troubles, against a boat carrying 6 people traveling from Venezuela to Trinidad. The strike unalived all 6, including Chad Joseph and Rishi Samaru, 2 Trinidadian nationals who had been fishing in the waters off of Venezuelan coast and working on farms in Venezuela, and who were returning to their homes in Las Cervezas in nearby Trinidad and Tobago. On October 14th, attack was part of an unprecedented and manifestly unlawful U.S. military campaign of lethal strikes against small boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Since this military campaign began on September 2nd, the United States has launched 36 armed attacks against boats in international waters, unaliving an estimated 125 people. And I would remind everybody, if for some reason this live does go down, which you just never know anymore, I am on the tube of you and I will just move over there. Number 3, the United States has not conducted these strikes pursuant to any congressional authorization. Instead, the government has acted unilaterally, and Orange administration officials, including Mr. Orange and Secretary of Defense Hegseth, have publicized videos of the boat strikes, boasting about and celebrating their own role in unaliving defenseless people. These premeditated and intentional unalivings lack any plausible legal justification. Thus, they were simply murders ordered by individuals at the highest level of government and obeyed by military officers in the chain of command. Here, just double checking, make sure I'm lined up okay still, everyone. Number 5, in response to the strikes, members of Congress, former U.S. government officials from across the political spectrum, former military leaders and personnel, experts on the law of war, and dozens of foreign governments, including some of the United States' closest allies, have condemned the U.S. military strikes as illegal. Reports indicate that inside the Department of Defense, many officers have questioned the legality of the strikes, and that some have even sought private counsel out of concern for potential criminal liability. Got cocoa today, everybody. It's still cold. All right. All right, here we go again. This is a tough one, everybody. Confronted with widespread denunciations, the government has made threadbare claims that the lethal boat strikes are lawful under the law of war. It has appointed to a still secret Office of Legal Counsel memorandum, still secret, that's not great, memorandum that reportedly determined that the United States is engaged in a non-international armed conflict against scores of unspecified drug cartels in Latin America. Whatever the secret memorandum states, it cannot render the patently illegal unalivings as lawful. So I think anyone going in and doing a lawsuit against the government for this are going to have some struggles getting any of the information. First, under the plain terms of the laws of war, also known as International Humanitarian Law, or IHL, there is no actual armed conflict that could justify the use of lethal military force against the boats. Nor was there one on October 14th when Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were unalived. As a result, the United States' campaign of unalivings violate international law prohibiting extrajudicial unalivings and federal law prohibiting murder. And just a friendly reminder, there's no statute of limitations on murder. Second, even if there were a real armed conflict that could trigger the application of IHL, these airstrikes would still be illegal under the established body of law. Indeed, given that the top U.S. officials ordered the direct, international, and unjustified unalivings of civilians, their actions amounted to grave breaches of the 1949 Geneva Convention. You do not ever want to have to say that sentence. And as such, war crimes punishable under federal and international law. The United States unlawful unalivings of people at sea, including Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru, constitute wrongful unalives and extrajudicial unalivings as recognized by 2 federal statutes that entitle their survivors to compensation and redress. The Unalive on the High Seas Act, or DOSA, here, which is 46 U.S. Code Section 3031, and the Alien Tort Statutes, or ATS, 28 U.S. Code Section 1350. These wanton, willful, and outrageous unalivings also constitute torts under General Admiralty and Maritime Law, 28 U.S. Code Section 1333. I am no expert on maritime law, but I do criminal law. So we'll keep going forward. The maritime law here is a special piece because, of course, we're dealing with maritime stuff. This body of law makes the United States liable to the survivors' families. And that will be what the defendants argue against. Under DOSA, when the unalive of an individual is caused by wrongful act, neglect, or default occurring on the high seas beyond 3 nautical miles from the shore of the United States, the personal representative of the decedent may bring a civil action in admiralty against the person or vessel responsible. Again, this is 40 U.S. Code Section 3032. Courts have long held that homicide is a wrongful act within the meaning of DOSA, right? The ATS enacted in 1789, so that's the torts statute, permits non-citizens to bring suit in the United States courts for violations of the law of nations or a treaty of the United States under ATS. Federal courts are authorized to adjudicate violations of law of nation norms, also known as customary international law, that are clearly defined and widely accepted. And we're citing here the Sosa case of 2004, recognizing ATS claims for violations of specific, universal, and obligatory norms of customary international law. The prohibition on extrajudicial unalivings, the arbitrary or unlawful deprivation of the right to life, is a norm codified in every major human rights treaty and has reached the status of a non-derogable, I don't know what that means. Sorry, more coffee. Norm that binds all states in peacetime and war period. Indeed, U.S. courts have recognized a customary international law norm prohibiting past state-sponsored extrajudicial killings on the basis of an ATS claim. So you're saying, look, dude, we've got a couple of different sources here that you are violating. So like pick which one you like because they're all in play. And we're looking here at this case out of 2010. And since the founding era, federal courts sitting in admiralty have adjudicated torts committed on the high seas in violation of international law pursuant to the ATS. And we're citing case law here. Really? 17? Really? That can't be right. Oh, it is. All right. So this is a 1795 case. All right. We're taking it back. In this lawsuit, Mr. Joseph's mother and Mr. Samaru's sister bring claims under DOSA, the ATS and General Admiralty and Maritime Law, seeking compensation for the unaliving of Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru for the benefit of their beneficiaries. Through this suit, Miss Burnley and Miss Coruscant also demand accountability for U.S. officials' brazen acts taken in wanton disregard of the most elementary principles of law and humanity that took away their loved ones forever. Jurisdiction and venue. So this has been a big question too. Do our courts even have the authority to hear these cases, or do they need to be moved to a different court? Of course, the defendants are going to use that as well. Number 13, this court has jurisdiction over this case pursuant to the Admiralty and Maritime Jurisdiction Statutes, 28 U.S. Code 1333, because the conduct complained of constitutes a wrongful act that caused unalives occurring on the high seas, which are waters beyond 3 nautical miles from the shores of the United States. Here, 42 U.S. Code. The court also has jurisdiction under 28 U.S. Code because the United States' unlawful unalivings constitute general admiralty and maritime torts. So, of course, our torts that we're talking about would be, just slipped my mind. Hold on a minute. Wrongful death. All right, that took me a minute. In addition, this court has jurisdiction pursuant to the ATS, which empowers federal courts to adjudicate torts committed in violation of the law of nations, also known as customary international law, including those committed on the high seas. This is a tough one, everybody. All right, number 15. Because the suit constitutes civil actions in admiralty that could be maintained against a private person in like circumstances, the Suits in Admiralty Act waives the United States sovereign immunity for plaintiffs' claims brought under DOSA, the ATS, and General Admiralty and Maritime Law. So they're saying under the law, we can move this around. It is not only allowed in one district. Venues proper in this district under another provision of SIAA, which is that 46 U.S. Code, when pursuing an action under the statute, non-resident aliens can, quote, bring suit in any district on grounds that otherwise they would have no forum in which to sue. And we've got case law here, and plaintiffs invoke this court's admiralty jurisdiction in light of the district's venerable history of adjudicating admiralty disputes. So, which, that's kind of an interesting point, right? Because we're in Massachusetts. So, I mean, that's where the Tea Party was, right? In the old school days. So we've got multiple case citations here if you're interested in that. Next are the parties. Plaintiff Lenore Burnley is a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and the mother of Chad Joseph, a Trinidadian national who the United States extrajudicially unalived via a missile strike on or about October 14th of 2025. Mr. Joseph's family has decided that Ms. Burnley will represent Mr. Joseph's estate and has retained local counsel in Trinidad for the purpose of effectuating Ms. Burnley's appointment as the estate's personal representative. Ms. Burnley brings this action as the anticipated personal representative of Mr. Joseph's estate and on behalf of Mr. Joseph's beneficiaries. Plaintiff Salakar Khorasan is a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and the sister of Rishi Samaru, a Trinidadian national who the United States extrajudicially unalived on or about October 14th of 2025. Mr. Samaru's family has decided that Ms. Khorasan will represent Mr. Samaru's estate and has retained local counsel in Trinidad for the purposes of effectuating Ms. Khorasan's appointment as the estate's personal representative. Ms. Khorasan brings this action as the anticipated personal representative of Mr. Samaru's estate and on behalf of Mr. Samaru's beneficiaries. Pursuant to the SIAA waiver of sovereign immunity, defendant, United States of America. This I think is the part, everybody, that gets me when I read through this. The defendant is the United States of America. Ouch. That's an ouch. Is responsible for all the acts and omissions of its agents, officers, and personnel described herein. Their conduct is attributable to defendant because United States agents, officers, and personnel, including and under the command and control of President Orange and Secretary of Defense Hegseth, acting in their own official capacities, authorized and or carried out the unalivings of Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru on the high seas. Just make sure here, I want to double check and make sure my camera's not falling. All right. Factual allegations. So there's several in here, and they're going to take us through their facts. Again, this is the complaint that has been filed by the mother and sister of two of the victims. So this is their complaint that they're putting together. Factual allegations. The October 14th, 2025 lethal strike that unalived Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru. So here's our first set. On October 14th, President Orange announced on his social media platform that he had ordered a lethal kinetic strike on a boat traveling in international waters, quote, just off the coast of Venezuela, unaliving 6 men. And we are citing a Truth Social post because that's where we are in the world. So he posted about that. The announcement included a 33-second video of the strike. Again, let's put all of the evidence of wrongdoing on a video and show it to everybody. We're seeing this from Reuters, so I'm not sure if it's authenticated or not. The video begins by showing a small, entirely stationary boat in low light conditions. For several seconds, the boat does not move or emit any light. Ammunition can then be seen rapidly falling towards the boat, and the munition then strikes the boat, which is immediately consumed in flames. So here we are at 30, let me just make sure, we're at 4 seconds here, 5 seconds here, and then I guess still 5 seconds. So within 2 seconds, they just wiped out everybody. Oh, one more. For the remainder of that video, the viewer can no longer make out the contours of the boat. It is illegible only as a conflagration. So again, and all of this was published kind of as a, oh, look and see what we did kind of situation. According to Trinidad and Tobago Foreign Affairs Minister Sean Sobers, Trinidadian authorities have obtained the coordinates of this strike and other strikes carried out by the U.S. military in the Caribbean Sea that verify that the strikes occurred outside of Trinidad and Tobago's territorial waters. Upon information and belief, Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were on board the boat depicted in this video at the time the strike was carried out. So they're showing the means of the homicide here. All right, so let's talk about who our victims are here. Again, just trying to make sure here. All right. Chad Joseph, before the United States unalived him. Ooh, yikes. Mr. Joseph was a 26-year-old resident of Las Cuevas, Trinidad, where he lived with his common-law wife and their 3 minor children, for whom Mr. Joseph provided support, parental guidance, and nurture. This is him in Trinidad. Like many of the residents of Las Cervas, a small fishing community located approximately 20 nautical miles from Venezuela, Mr. Joseph often traveled between Las Cervas and Venezuela for fishing and farm work in Venezuela. During these trips, Mr. Joseph would often stay in Venezuela for weeks and occasionally months at a time. Every day while in Venezuela, Mr. Joseph would call his wife and children, sometimes multiple times a day. Mr. Joseph would also regularly call his mother, Miss Burnley, and would often have group WhatsApp calls with her and his wife. Now, his mother is the one bringing the suit. In April of 2025, Mr. Joseph traveled to Las Cervas. I know there's not an R in there. I can't get it out. To Venezuela for fishing and farm work. On June or July, Mr. Joseph told his wife that he planned to return to Las Cuevas by boat. His plan was thwarted, however, when a boat Mr. Joseph found to transport him home encountered engine troubles and had to turn back to Venezuela. For the next several weeks, Mr. Joseph tried to find another boat that could take him back to Las Cuevas. During this time, as usual, Mr. Joseph and his wife spoke daily. One conversation remains a particularly vivid and haunting memory for his wife, a call on September 2nd or shortly thereafter, when media reports first appeared online about U.S. military blowing up a boat that had left Venezuela with 11 people aboard. Mr. Joseph called his wife and Miss Burney to assure them that he was not aboard that vessel and that he would be returning to Trinidad as soon as he could find a ride. Over the next several weeks, Mr. Joseph continued his search for a boat ride home, as reports of the U.S. military strikes against boats in the Caribbean Sea dominated the news in the region. Mr. Joseph became increasingly fearful of making the return trip, but he was determined to return to his wife and their children as soon as possible. On October 12th, Mr. Joseph called his wife to tell her he had found a boat that was traveling to Las Cuervas and that he would be home in a couple of days. That call was the last time his wife or anyone else in his family heard from Mr. Joseph. On October 14th, Miss Burnley saw media reports that the U.S. military had blown up a boat just off the coast of Venezuela and called Mr. Joseph's wife about them. They immediately feared that Mr. Joseph was aboard this boat, as the timing of the strike directly coincided with Mr. Joseph's journey by boat from Venezuela to Las Cuevas, and upon information and belief, occurred in the waters that Mr. Joseph traversed on that journey. Miss Burnley and Mr. Joseph's wife repeatedly called Mr. Joseph's cell phone, but the line was unalived. The line remains unalive to this day. As no one has heard from Mr. Joseph since October 12th, his family has concluded Mr. Joseph was a passenger on board the boat that the United States destroyed on or about October 14th. Missed that one there. All right, Miss Burnley attempted to file a missing persons report about Mr. Joseph's disappearance with a police station in Matelot, Trinidad, where Mr. Joseph was born and Miss Burnley still resides. But an officer there told Miss Burnley that the report should be filed with the Maracas Bay police station in Las Cuevas, because Las Cuevas was the last place where Mr. Joseph had been seen alive in Trinidad. Mr. Joseph's wife subsequently filed a missing persons report with the Maracas Bay police station, but has heard nothing from the Trinidad police since doing so. Mr. Joseph's wife also arranged for a lawyer to file a Trinidadian Freedom of Information Act request with the Trinidadian government, seeking information about the October 14th strike, to which to date they have received no response. Distraught and in need of closure. Oops, everybody, I'm so sorry. I have to pause for just a second here. Let me just pause this. I'll be right back, okay? Yeah, all right. Sorry about that, everybody. Some things don't wait for me. I have to do them real quickly. So, apologies. All right, here we go. Back to Mr. Joseph. Mr. Joseph's wife also arranged for a lawyer to file in a Trinidadian Freedom of Information Act request with the Trinidadian government seeking information about the October 14th strike, to which to date they have received no response. I'm not surprised. The legal systems are going to vary significantly from island to island to island, so you never really know what you're going to get. Although they were hiring last time I was in the Virgin Islands. They're like, hey, we're hiring. I'm like, oh, really? All right. So, distraught and in need of closure, on October 22nd, Mr. Joseph's family held a memorial service for Mr. Joseph at his home in Las Cuevas. On November 22nd of 2025, his family held a second memorial service in Matelot, Mr. Joseph's birth village. So that's Mr. Joseph's story here. So let's go next to Rishi Samaru here. And I just can't quite. There we go. Nope, it's still tapping. Oh my gosh. All right, hold on here, everybody. I'm like, boy, this is serious stuff as I dink around with my camera. All right, here we go. That looks better. I hope that looks better. Keep going. So Mr. Rishi, his sister is the one bringing the lawsuit. Before the United States unalived him, yikes, Mr. Samaru was a 41-year-old resident of Las Cuevas, Trinidad. He was born in Bim Bim Trace. Oh my God, that's the best name ever. In Bim Bim Trace, El Socorro, Trinidad, where his elderly father, 8 younger siblings, including Miss Corazine, and 2 of his 3 sons, still reside. Oh, that's a lot. His elderly mother, who is separated from his father, lives nearby in San Juan. Until 2009, Mr. Samaru lived in El Socorro and worked in construction. He was the main breadwinner for his family then, supporting his parents, 2 of his sons, and his brothers and sister. From 2009 until late of 2024, Mr. Samaru was imprisoned for his participation in a homicide. No, that's not good. That's not good. Okay, 2009. So that's not good here. Following his early release on parole, Mr. Samaru moved to Las Cuevas, where he found work in construction and as a fisherman. While living there, Mr. Samaru was in regular contact with his family in El Socorro, calling at least one family member daily. He also financially supported his parents and 2 of his sons. In August of 2025, Mr. Samaru called his sister, Miss Corazine, to let her know he was in Venezuela, living and working on a farm there. When in Venezuela, Mr. Samaru was in regular contact with Miss Corazine and the rest of his family. He called at least one of them at least once a day and sometimes more using the WhatsApp video chat function. So they're laying the foundation for witnesses to be able to come in here. Were you called by him? Yes, I was. What did he say? Blah, blah, blah. So that's why they're going through these steps again. In their frequent communications, Mr. Samaru shared videos of his work on the farm, where he cared for cows and goats and made cheese. All right, so here's some goats. That's another goat, to the best of my knowledge here. All right, so during one of Mr. I'm not sure here about this. I'm not sure. During one of Mr. Samaru's video chats with Miss Corazine, Mr. Samaru briefly introduced Mr. Joseph. Mr. Samaru told Miss Corazine that Mr. Joseph was a friend of his from Las Cuevas. He said that he and Mr. Joseph fished together and that they were then working on the same farm. On October 12th, Mr. Samaru called Miss Corazine from Venezuela to let her know he was about ready to catch a ride on a boat headed for Las Cuevas. Let me make sure here. Right. Mr. Samaru's mother had fallen ill, and Mr. Samaru wanted to come back and help take care of her. Mr. Samaru also sent Corazine a photograph of himself wearing a life jacket. He said he would see Miss Corazine in a few days. That a call was the last time Miss Corazine or anyone in his family had heard from him. All right. And there's the next one. All right. On or soon after October 14th, Ms. Corsine read social media posts and news reports that the U.S. military had blown up a boat traveling off the coast of Venezuela with 6 men on board, including 2 Trinidadian nationals. Ms. Corsine feared that Mr. Samaru was aboard this boat. At the timing of the strike directly coincided with Mr. Samaru's journey by boat from Venezuela to Las Cuevas, and upon information and belief occurred in waters that Mr. Samaru traversed on that journey. Miss Corsine called Mr. Samaru's phone multiple times, as did other family members, but the line was unalive. The line remains unalive to this day. Distraught, Mr. Samaru's family filed a missing persons report about his disappearance. They also arranged for a lawyer to file Trinidadian Freedom of Information Act request with the Trinidadian government seeking information about the October 14th strike, to which to date they have received no response. As no one has heard from Mr. Samaru since October 12th, his family has concluded he was a passenger on the boat that the defendant destroyed on or about October 14th. In need of closure, October 24th, Mr. Samaru's family held a memorial service for Mr. Samaru and performed funeral rites. All right, next piece here. The United States' attempt to justify its lethal boat strikes as lawful. So here is going to be the U.S.'s argument to say we didn't do anything wrong, right? Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were 2 of at least 125 victims of the United States' 36 lethal military strikes against people on boats since September 2nd. That's too many. All right, 36. Yikes. The United States has publicly defended the boat strikes, including the October 14th strike, as lawful. Orange and Hegseth and other government officials have asserted, sometimes with reference to an OLC, Office of Legal Counsel, legal memo, that they have continued to keep secret that these strikes are part of a non-international armed conflict, supposedly involving the United States and unspecified drug cartels. Top administration officials have further claimed that the boats they assert were carrying rugs, as well as the people on board, are thus legitimate military targets in this so-called armed conflict, according to news reports. The secret memo concludes that by allegedly trafficking rugs, the boats and civilians in them may be lawfully targeted, regardless of whether they pose any actual military threat to the United States or whether there are means short of lethal force that could reasonably be employed to neutralize any threat they supposedly pose. The memo is the subject of the Freedom of Information Act litigation in the Southern District of New York. So just to remind everybody, the FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, and I am almost caught up on all of the lawsuits against the administration. FOIA is coming out ahead. So over and over and over again, people are sending in FOIA requests. So they're saying, government, we want information, and this is what we want it on. And they're getting tangled up in it because they're getting pulled into court for contempt because they're not going forward on the FOIA request because they're like, we don't have to do anything. We don't want to do blah, blah, blah. Not true. There's a law here. But the FOIA cases are almost exploding all over the place, and we love to see that. That is a good thing. The government has not publicly identified all of the drug cartels with which it claims to be at war, and with respect to nearly all its boat strikes, including the one on October 14th, it has not identified any cartel it was purportedly targeting, nor has the government made public any evidence at all to support its assertions that the boats it's blown up and the people it's unalived were members or even affiliated with drug cartels, nor has the government provided any public evidence that targeted boats were in fact carrying rugs or that the occupants were trafficking them, let alone that any such rugs were destined for the United States. Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were not members of or affiliated with any kind of rug cartels. The Trinidadian government has publicly stated that the government has no information linking Joseph or Samaru to illegal activities, and that it had no information of the victims of the U.S. strikes being in possession of illegal substances and stuff here. I want to say, because the TikTok gets mad about it. The government's own admission demonstrate that its claims about rug trafficking are dubious, if not fabricated. Secretary of State Marco Rubio publicly stated that rugs allegedly on board the boats were not even destined for the United States, but for Europe. And the U.S. Coast Guard recently acknowledged that in many cases, boats the government interdicts and searches under suspicion of rug trafficking off the coast of Venezuela are ultimately found to have no illicit contraband aboard. In fact, the White House Chief of Staff admitted in an interview published on December 16th of 2025 that the U.S.'s goal in targeting boats had nothing to do with the rugs at all, but that the president planned to keep blowing boats up, end quote, until President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela resigned. Since that statement on January 3rd, the United States undertook a military operation in Venezuela, abducted President Maduro and his wife, and reportedly unalived scores of people. Since that raid, the government has engaged in one boat strike on January 23rd. That's suspicious. That's really suspicious. Next, under any available legal framework, the boat strikes are illegal. Regardless of any secret evidence the government claims to have to support its unprecedented legal theory, that happens a lot with these people, these people being the executive branch. As a matter of plain fact and settled law, there's no bona fide armed conflict between the United States or any purported rug cartels, nor was there one when the United States unalived Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru, which could justify the use of military force. Under IHL, there are two types of armed conflicts: international armed conflicts and non-international armed conflicts. An international armed conflict, or an IAC, as defined under Common Article 2 of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. Again, you never want to have to use this. If you're using this, something's gone terribly wrong. And customary international law exists only when there are armed hostilities between two or more states. And they are quoting the War Manual. I do have the War Manual. If anyone would like me to do a live going through the War Manual, let me know. But, you know, it's a manual on the law of war. So there's that. Confirming U.S. adherence to this IHL definition. The government has not claimed that it is involved in an international armed conflict that justifies its recent campaign of boat strikes, nor has it claimed that the boat it has targeted are military vessels controlled by another state. The non-international armed conflict, or NIAC, as defined under Common Article 3 of the Geneva Convention and customary law that goes with that, exists between a state and a non-state entity only where there is protracted armed violence, which is military in character, between a state and an organized armed group. Again, we're back to the Law of War Manual. The government has claimed that the United States engaged in such a non-international armed conflict with rug cartels, but it is not, because the established conditions for such a conflict are not remotely met. Almost every laws of war expert agrees. And then we are quoting an article that was done, and Just Security here. Just Security's website that collects so much amazing information. That's where I get a lot of my closet docket updates from. So if you ever want to go check them out, they have some great resources, including getting everything organized in the proper order, and I appreciate that. With respect to the relevant criteria, first, there's no actual protracted armed violence of the kind cognizable under IHL occurring between the United States and any drug cartel. No drug cartel has confronted the United States using military means such as tanks and other military equipment in sustained armed clashes, and drug cartels do not engage in armed violence merely by trafficking the drugs. Organized crime, even when it involves violent acts, does not constitute armed violence against a state. Organized crime is just that, a crime that in the United States is cognizable and punishable by criminal law alone, subject to constitutional constraints, including due process of law. That's right, due process is our friend here. We've got another piece of the U.S. Code. So this is 46 U.S. Code Section 705, regulating criminal maritime drug law enforcement. So there's an actual statute, multiple statutes that say what you can and cannot do with this kind of stuff. Second, the United States not engaged in hostilities against any drug cartel that constitutes an organized armed group under IHL. A non-state entity is an organized armed group only when it can operate akin to regular armed forces, that is, with a command structure that imposes discipline and utilizes military tactics in a unified manner. No drug cartel that exhibits these indicia of organization is engaged in military-style protracted armed violence against the United States. You know, I've got one job here to read the words. Sorry about that. Because these boat strikes did not occur in an armed conflict, the laws of war do not apply. Instead, the rules under international human rights law and federal law regulating the government strike, and those rules protect the right to life and prohibit extrajudicial unaliving. Thus, under the correct legal framework, the government's barred from using lethal force unless at the time it is applied, lethal force is a necessary last resort to protect against a concrete, specific, and imminent threat of unalive or serious physical injury. Not even the government has claimed that the strikes could meet that standard. As a result, the strikes are illegal. And I think that's one of their most powerful arguments. And two, when we start hearing the habeas corpus cases coming up on birthright citizenship and some stuff, I think this will be a big point that'll merge together. Moreover, even if the strikes had somehow been undertaken with an actual armed conflict, they would still be illegal. In an armed conflict, the laws of war constrain the indiscriminate and direct use of force against civilians. Thus, under IHL, if a person is not a member of an opposing state's armed forces or a member of the non-state organized armed group who is directly participating in hostilities, a state is prohibited from using lethal force against them, which is how all law enforcement works. Similarly, within an armed conflict, the state may target an object, such as a boat, only one where doing so makes an effective contribution to military action. Two, where the object's destruction, capture, or neutralization in the circumstances ruling at the time offers oh my gosh, everybody. How about offers a for sure military advantage And 3, where a strike's military advantage will be proportional to or excessive of its effects, including collateral damage to human life. Thus, even assuming there was an actual armed conflict, which there was not, no conditions existed to justify the government's lethal strikes against civilians or civilian vessels, including the strike that unalived Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru. As a result, even in the context of an armed conflict, the unalivings of Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru would constitute a grave breach of the 1949 Geneva Conventions and thus a war crime, making its perpetrators punishable under federal and international law. Put another way, the United States' unaliving of people aboard boats in the Caribbean through missile strikes are wrongful and violate international law regardless of which international legal regime applies. First, because there is in fact no non-international armed conflict with the drug cartels purportedly targeted in the strikes, and no evidence that the boats targeted are associated with cartels. The unalivings violate the bedrock prohibition against extrajudicial unaliving and are simply murders on the high seas. And second, even if there were a non-international armed conflict between the United States and the cartels, and even if there were evidence that the boats targeted were associated with the cartels, the strikes would constitute war crimes under the laws of war and federal law. And that's the piece that I think they keep forgetting here in this administration. It's like, even if you, so what? So they're bad people, that's fine. But it doesn't mean then they don't have any rights. I mean, this is not how that works. In particular, we're on our last 2 pages, everybody here. Then I will turn everything so we can have a Q&A and kind of talk about it a little bit. In particular, the United States unaliving of Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were unlawful upon information and belief. The United States' agents, officers, and personnel authorized directed the strike that unalived Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru, even though at the time the strike was carried out, neither Mr. Joseph nor Mr. Samaru were engaged in activities that presented a concrete, specific, imminent threat of unalive or serious physical injury to the United States or anyone at all, and means other than lethal force could have reasonably been employed to neutralize any lesser threat they or the boat they were on might have posed. Moreover, the unalivings of Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were unlawful even if carried out in the context of an armed conflict, because upon information and belief, the United States' agents, officers, personnel authorized and directed the strike, even though Mr. Joseph and Mr. Samaru were not directly participating in hostilities against the United States at the time of the strike, nor were they members of an organized armed group engaged in an armed conflict with the United States, nor was the boat they were aboard a lawful military target. So these are, yikes, everybody, these are tough. So these are the claims for relief. First claim is for wrongful unalive. And they're pulling this out of the Death on the High Seas Act here. There's not really a lot to this act, but it does allow for an opening somewhere in the law if you need it. So we've got wrongful unaliving. I have to keep saying unaliving. Okay, wrongful death. Come for me, TikTok. You got a problem. Say it to my face. Next, extrajudicial killing. That is the second claim for relief. And this is under the tort claims under jurisdiction of the Alien Tort Statutes. This is kind of an interesting statute. I won't spend too much time going into it, but the Alien Tort Statute in here, how they set it out is what's allowing for someone who's not a citizen to bring lawful legal action here if it falls within the confines of what's required in the statute. All right, so we've got the first one, wrongful death. The second one, extrajudicial killings here, and then that was the last one. So we only got two counts then, and that's that's plenty. I would say that's absolutely plenty. If you're going to just come with a couple of counts, you need to make sure that they're pretty significant. They're pretty major. So the first one, of course, is basically is murder, right? And then the second one is when they're talking about murder for everybody, murdering, plural, plural in water. There we go. Let's just make sure I'm right. I gotta double check. Murder, and then, right. Extrajudicial killings, and then more murders. So that's correct. So at the very end, of course, we have our prayer, everyone, where they're just asking. This is what they're asking for: pecuniary, compensatory, and punitive damages in an amount to be determined at trial, and such other relief as the court deems just and proper. It's a very quick prayer here, but when you're coming at it and you're saying, we want all the damages, in particular, you see this punitive damages piece. Punitive damages are not to make the victim whole again, which is the whole point of civil law, but is to punish the wrongdoers. That's where you get those huge, huge amounts. Like in the E. Jean Carroll case, right? So the huge amount that she was awarded, she had a few bits that were just for her that were awarded. And then this huge, huge amount of money that the Orange had to pay for punitive damages. And again, the punitive damages are to punish the wrongdoer and to say, like, stop talking about her, Dingleberry. So that's what we're looking at here in this case. Now that was the end. Let me go ahead and turn comments on. We can do a little Q&A here and kind of talk about what's been going on here. All right, one moment. No, that doesn't seem right. Okay, then, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. All right, are we here? Are the comments here? Oh, they're good. Hi, everybody. Hello. Happy to see you. I really wanted to make it all the way through this particular filing before I saw too many squirrels. So, oh my gosh, hello. Welcome in, everybody. It's always kind of tough when I turn off the comments because I can't talk to you. And that's boring. I hate that. Punitive damages don't seem like enough. True story. That's absolutely true. Oh, girl with her brushes. Welcome. So unique. Hello. Welcome. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, what are you doing? And I like how they set out here in their complaint. Again, this is the petitioners. There's not been a response yet to this. The government's not responded, and we're only like a couple weeks in. We had one big issue in this case so far on the docket. If you are interested, we've got a magistrate that needed to recuse himself. And so that recusal process doesn't mean he did anything wrong. He was just like, nah, I can't do this one. And so they had to assign another judge and then get the judge up to date. And then the judge that got up to date was like, dude, where's your response? So they're taking care of business. These judges are like, we're not playing here anymore. All right. Are there other of these cases? So I'm glad you asked. I only know of the boat cases, these as the only homicide victims who've had family, who has family that brought the case. But it's only been a couple weeks, right? I mean, this is, what are we on what's the date? The 9th? I mean, there's a lot of time left in the game, if you know what I mean. I would not be surprised if we saw some more come through, but these are pretty powerful at this point. And my guess is they're going to settle it out because that's what the Orange does. Mm-hmm. Who ultimately receives the punitive damage? The victim. The victims do. So if they were to award, let's just say he's like, this is crazy. We've got $100 million in punitive damages. I know it sounds more like Giuliani, but that money, any of this money goes to the plaintiffs. That's where it goes. All of it goes there. Right. Mm-hmm. And so again, this is a civil case, and that means our goal in civil court is to put the harmed person back to where they were before the harm was done. That's almost impossible to do when you have unalived people. So what they do then is they set out different levels of compensatory damages and so on. But then that punitive piece is to say, you guys knew better and you did it anyway. It hurt a lot of people. That money comes out of our tax money. So mixed bite, that's the entire Department of Justice right now is all our tax money, and they're going over 260 suits where we have potential violations of federal law and constitutional law. So, because the president refused to follow the law, yeah, they're taking tax money out for the DOJ so they can go in and take care of all these cases. And if you think a little bit of money for having a family member unalived wrongfully isn't okay for tax money, then my question is, well, what is? Something other than just, harming people, right? What would you like to spend that tax money on? Because it's not going to food for kids, right? It's not going to research. It's not going to hospitals. It's not going to any of the medical places where it's been already assigned by Congress, or any of the environmental places. I've got boards and boards and boards of all this money sitting in a pot somewhere, and it's like $410 billion that this president's refused to give to proper places. So at this point in time, it's like, I would like my tax money to somehow open the door so we can continue on a legal road instead of an illegal road. All right, how's that sound to you? Yeah, I mean, what they're alleging here is that the U.S. government wrongfully killed these people, right? I mean, when someone does that, it's murder. Now, we're not really going to be looking at criminal cases. We're going to look to the civil cases, and that's all we can. I don't know about that. I don't know about this kids count stuff. I've been hearing stuff about it, and it's like, are you trying to set it up for all of your baby mamas out there, for Mr. Orange's baby mamas? Let me clarify here, because it's like, I think that's great to start a fund for children. I think that's fabulous. But I also think it's important to be able to put a meal on your table. So if I have to choose between putting some in this fund for my child, who knows what's going to happen when they grow up? Who knows? Are they going to go to college? We don't know. We don't know what they're going to do. But in the meantime, there's nothing on the table to eat. All right. So I'm like, which is more important? And you can tell who came through with the idea of having accounts for kids, right? It's the rich people. Yep. That's the rich people. They're like, get accounts. Meanwhile, the rest of us are like, we can't afford pizza tonight. Yeah, if you just stop breaking the law. Well, and his minions too. I mean, he's kind of fading, in my opinion. I've got no experience or knowledge of any of that, but in my opinion, his speeches are showing that he's kind of fading and he needs to go rest. Yeah, well, and that's what he wants. He wants to put his name on it, right? And don't get me wrong. I think if any family that is in family of all, whatever makes up your family, if you have a child and you're able to start an account for that child, that's fabulous. I think that's great. And it's good to do that. But again, that's also a rich person's game, right? Because if you are in the level that's going to get hit the hardest by the taxes, if that's your range, you're going to put money in a kid's account instead of buying a winter coat. That doesn't make sense at all. Initiative. Oh, exactly. I know, right? Yeah, I try to be as neutral as possible here, but when it comes to harming children, that's my line. So if we're going to come in and hurt the kids, I don't care about your fund. Well, and that's, oh gosh, Ledger, dude, that's the hard question, right? How do you keep going on and enforcing these things? Oh, we got a puzzle. When you don't believe that they're okay. And that's really hard. Now, attorneys, because we have to have ethics, we can't violate our ethics. And so that's why they're leaving left and right. But for the rest of the people, one of the most interesting conversations I had was with, if you want to make a bill in Congress, you actually put a whole bunch of things in it. You're like, I want this, this, and this. And then you send it to the Legislative Service Bureau. You send it to the lawyers to actually write what the law should look like. And I had a great conversation with someone who'd been doing that for 20 years. And he said recently, he's like, I can't do it anymore because what I'm writing is so awful and unconstitutional that it's like, I just can't even do it anymore. But you got to get to that place in your own time. What's the and word deadline? I don't know. I'm not sure what exactly you're talking about. And word. Forgive me, need more details. Do we have proof that $420 billion still exists? Yes. What you can do, well, I don't know. Here, I'm going to move my phone. Careful, careful, careful. All right, here's what you can do. If you need to go through and figure out, the amount of money right here. Every single one of these green stickies, this is just for the first half of January. I've got the second half coming. Each one of these you can add together because they are all saying you're denying this funds. You're denying the funds that we're supposed to get from Congress. So all you got to do is just say, hey, add it all together, and then there's your number. All right. So again, and there's like 25 more boards in my room. Answer for the lawsuit here. I'm not quite understanding. Oh, the answer. Okay, I got it now. Okay, right. So we don't have an answer yet. Apologies for that. It took me a minute. Because right now we had that switch up about a week ago in the magistrate. The magistrates are saying we need to get an answer in here, but we don't have it yet. So I did double check right before I went live here. We still don't have it yet. But some of that has to do with, there's nobody in the DOJ left, right? When does the government have to respond? Well, the judge is getting pissed off about it, so they better hurry up and get her done. Right, right. I'm not sure, Ledger, of whom you speak, for mountains of, whatever. I mean, are you talking about the rich people? Trump accounts. He's got, right, Griffith Children. Well, it doesn't seem like it's required, right? I mean, there's no law that's requiring it, I'm hoping, at this point. That's a really important thing. One more thing, too, that I wanted to add, and I've been saying this for the last week because everybody's talking about the SAVE Act, right? I've come up many times and will continue to come up many times and say this SAVE Act is rubbish. It's not, running around trying to find all of your identifying information. If you're a woman, your birth certificate's different than your married name, right? One thing I wanted to clarify is, so long as you did everything you needed to do in order to change your name when you got married, you should have no problems. Because I was thinking to myself, maybe not everybody is quite as diligent, but if you've got a process in order to change your name and you haven't done it yet, you should do that. So what I'm saying is they're not going to be targeting, just, you should already have that right in place. Let me just clarify. You should have filled out paperwork when you got married, literally when you got married, and then sent it in. And if you did, you should be good to go. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. Massive corporations don't take any extra tax breaks. Again, I don't know what you're talking about, Ledger. I'm sorry, I just do not know. Massive corporations, right? They have all the money and they pay, crappy wages and pay and buy politicians, right? That's their job. You have a question about safe? Sure, sure. You didn't change your name. Okay. Are all of your names and all of your paperwork, like for your gas, electric, whatever it is, mortgage, lease, is the same name, right? You went through, you asked if you needed to get it changed, you went and changed it, or is it the same, right? But these are all questions outside of the SAVE Act. Like, you should already have this ready to go. And I'm not talking about real ID stuff. That's your world. You can look into and see what you want. But for any of your legal documents, you should have your proper name on it. I mean, for getting your driver's license in most states, although I think there are a few that didn't. But yeah, I mean, this is a good time then. Go refresh it, right? Take a look and be like, dude, do I have it? Because that's what we're talking about here. Can you talk about what SCOTUS said about the birthright citizen case? Not at this point, Allison. I'm not sure what I've heard. The biggest thing on birthright citizenship that I've noticed has been kind of the off-the-cuff comments that Thomas has been making. But I know oral arguments are April 1st. And so will we have to bring extra ID to vote or to register to vote? You have to have a legal, well, okay, let me put it this way. When you registered to vote in the past, what did you do, right? You brought probably a shoebox or whatever of all of your identification crap, right? And then you took it in to where you needed to take it in, and then you said, I need to register to vote, right? That's what everybody does. So then you're registered. Once you're registered, you've been pre-approved to vote. People don't understand that either. They're like, oh, they're not registered. You have to be, or else you're going to have some kind of a questionable ballot going out there. So you just have to make sure when you're registering to vote, all the information's good to go, and you're good to go. I mean, it's pre-voting with the registration. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, and it's not past the Senate. And not only that, but there's actually another, VC, you've probably seen this too. There's another another act that they're trying to push through regarding voting rights. But something to remember, everybody, too, and this is what upsets me. Well, a lot of things do, but this upsets me because they're coming in and saying, well, we're going to run the elections. Hey, guess what? Not according to the Constitution. Right? The states run the elections. That's how it goes. Like for the voting and the stuff, that's up to the state. What's happening is they're putting these laws together at the feds and they're saying, do what we tell you or you're not getting any federal money, which, as you can tell by all the green stickies, yeah, they're withholding a heck of a lot of money from people, from states. And it's really awful. So it's a threat. It's a threat on separation of powers. So now the states are like, well, we'd like to do what we want to do, but we also need, a hospital, right? So then they have to make a choice. Why? Because it's apparently 1925. Everybody does it when you get an ID or a license, if not registered. Ask if you want. Well, there you go. Yeah. Again, it's so long as your name that you have right now that you're using is properly gained, like I'm trying to think. Like there's a lot of people kind of changing their names, like call me Ann instead of whatever. That kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. You just have to have a legal document with your proper name on it. So take a look at that. Take a moment and think, are all of my legal documents under one name? And then if they are, look and see what that name is and make sure that's the name you're using, right, to register. And they should be telling you this when you're registering. Right. Call me Allison. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I'm talking about. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating when they try to prop up something as extremely harmful, because rather than picking through the bill, we all are just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so it's like you got to sit down, you got to think to yourself, like, what now? Go to your creators, your favorite creators that explain law stuff to you, and there are so many out there that are so good at it. Go in there, listen to them, and then you're like, hey, I'm not going to freak out over your propaganda, right? The tariffs case is taking so long. Good question. And it's super frustrating because we actually have multiple summary judgments, which means courts have agreed without a trial that the tariffs are illegal. They've already said multiple times they're unconstitutional. So it takes time to get it up to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court takes a lot of time to think about stuff. At least most of them, at least they used to. So they got to think about it and whether or not they want to get it set or not. Because if you're trying to do birthright citizenship and the Alien Enemies Act allowing that to occur under habeas, those are two huge topics. I'm not sure the court's going to want to take another huge one. And that's kind of what we've been seeing is that we'll get one or two enormous cases and then like 3 or 4 that are like, that sucks, but at least it's not as bad as the other ones. That's kind of how that goes. I'm not sure how many people have changed their names. But if you do change your name when you're married, and I mean, maybe, I'm a weirdo, but you got to like change it on everything, right? You go to the post office, you change it, your mail, that's like a legal situation. Your passport, you got to get all your stuff renamed, right? And I'm assuming everybody does that. And if you've done that, you should be fine. Just making sure that you've got it all. Will we have to re-register? That I don't know. That I do not know. How far does birthright citizenship go? That's a tough one because, of course, we know the Kim Wong Ark case during the terrible situation that was actually was before the Plessy versus Ferguson case to tell where our discrimination levels were, but after Dred Scott. So the Dred Scott case, it was out before the Wong Kim Ark, to give you some idea of what we're dealing with in the timeline area. Yeah, I mean, if they're not citizens, it's all right. I mean, I would just say, what do people do now, right? Are you running around? Are you like Madonna? Oh my gosh, that just made me so old. Lady Gaga, right? Is that her legal name? I don't know. So will she need to re-register to vote? That's a good question. I'm not sure, especially because her citizenship probably changes from state to state if she gets a new house, right? So this is just one of those legal documents. Make sure your legal documents are up to date, including your name. Fill out anything you need to fill out, send it in. This True ID or whatever, I mean, that took 5 minutes to do that. So, and that's an investment. Some people are like, oh, it's super expensive, because it is, but also it's an investment. So you may only have half a table of food, but you really have to go in and get this done because this will save you in the future. Right. No, Carol, no. We love Madonna. We love Madonna. She's the best ever. If I ever get married, I just won't change my name. Hey, and you don't need to. And what's so cool right now, I mean, in a world that's not cool, is that this requirement that you take your husband's name, right? The last name, that's like no longer a thing. Like you can do that if you want, and good for you. But what I'm seeing now are tons of hyphenated double last names for both, which I love because that's like a huge history and tradition in Mexican culture when it comes to your name, right? It's not just like 3 names. So, and then some people, they use a new name for their new life. They pick a brand new name and they're like, okay, this is it. We're both changing our last name for our new life. But after you change your last name, fill out your proper legal paperwork so you don't have any problems. That's what I would say. Oh my gosh. Right. Prevent a lot of women from changing their names. Well, I mean, it's a choice. That's the choice you got to make. And at any time you can change your name, right? Like you can be like, dude, we're going to do a 6-month run And, if I like what I see, then, we'll go down and I'll change my name. But, you don't be needing to hand it out for free. You can give, my hubs always loves when I talk about that. Like, try it out for 6 months and then you can. And it's not that expensive. Luckily, later on down the road, it's not that expensive. Keep all the names and have 6 last 8. That's right. And I think that's kind of cool. It's not going to fit in your little bubble chart, but we don't use bubble charts anymore. I think that's great, right? Well, right. I love that. I think that's great. You gotta do whatever you like. Keep my name because I mean that. Well, there you go. There you go. Absolutely. I did take my husband's last name because I hated my own last name. My last name was rubbish. So when we got married, I was like, where do I sign to get my new name? The minister's like, I was talking about, the ceremony. I'm like, I don't care. Where do I sign? So you got to wait. And then after the wedding, he's like, sign right here, right here, right here. He knew I was stressed about it. I was so stressed. Whose name do the kids get? Well, you got to have a conversation, right? You got to sit down and communicate, which is a pain in the keister. We all hate that, but you gotta do it. You gotta just say like, hey, some people use both names or, whatever, but in the olden days, right, we had maiden names. Like that's bologna sandwiches these days. So do what you want. Just make sure that when you start how you want to finish. So don't be naming your kid like colon or something, and it's just the symbol for colon. I know I'm being judgy, but it's hard to put that into legal documents. That's hard to do. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's up to, it's up to everybody, but, right. Think too. Oh my gosh, that's funny. No, he's not. Well, he kind of is, he kind of is Mr. Attorney. Yeah, well, we both of us have doctorates, so we just refer to each other as doc. But not like the cool doctors, but like the weird one in Star Trek. Like, we need more sauce. Like, it's really out of control. My kids are like, we're coming for you. So yeah, we do that. Oh my goodness gracious. It was no big deal at all. It was well, yes, of course it is. Sadie, absolutely. Everything is, in my humble opinion. That's Bones, I know, but we call him Doc. Come on, man. You can't, don't give me a hard time about it. So yeah, you got to kind of make your own choices for that. Mom will always be mom. Dad might be questionable. Ooh, well, and it shouldn't be that way. And quite frankly, and this is what I've seen everybody in the legal field, quite frankly, it's trending towards the menfolk stepping up and being a significant part of that child's world. That's what I'm seeing starting to happen, and I think that's fabulous. But there's a long ways to go yet. Thanks, Scoops. Thanks. I gave my youngest my maiden name. Sure. Well, I think it's great. There's a lot of power in a name, in my humble opinion, which is why I was like, I need a new name. I don't like my name. So we're like, all right. So I changed my name, but there's a lot of power in that. So, and a lot of kids these days, they want to change their name to, reflect who they are. As they have grown up and then, gone down a road, they're like, dude, this name just doesn't even fit me anymore. I'm like, all right, well, here's $50 and release form. Go change it. Stay-at-home mom. I've changed about 40% of diapers. Hey, there you go. Yeah, we're all trying to figure stuff out. Well, right, and that's stuff too. So yeah, my hubs was stay at home with my youngest. Well, he was stay at home for a little while. So we kind of, exchange time with that. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's your kids are only going to be children in that age once. And so, you're like, I got to work, I got to get some money, understandable. But also, it's humanly possible for me to do this. I want to do it and it's okay. That's okay too. Love that. Love that. Right, right. Oh my gosh. Right, right. And it's up to you. But the whole point here, everybody, is that whatever your legal name is, you need to get all of your paperwork sorted out. And that's not just for the voting. That's like for everything. So get it sorted out and you're going to feel a lot better about where you're at. I would say for sure. Yeah. 15 different, well, right, the different spelling. I know, right? Oh, goodness. Well, right. So again, with the SAVE Act, I know people are really worried. I think it's great that they brought it up and we can talk about it. But more importantly, my assumption for everyone is that you are all up to date with your legal name. That's my assumption. So my comments on the SAVE Act are as though you already have everything set for your legal name. All right. I thought it was Doc. Was he not Doc? It was Bones. Oh, we call him Doc. Oh, maybe it was Scotty. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research now because if we've been quoting that movie wrong for like 20 years, that's going to be a problem. Oh my gosh. All right, everybody. With that, son got married. So excited to change his name. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's the parents too, right? The parents that are like, sure, go ahead, change your name. It didn't take me years to think of it and then give it to you and carry you, whatever. Yeah, pick your own name. Woohoo. I hear ya. Hello, Erin. Thanks for coming by. 53, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going around Navy Vet. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, it was referred to as Bones by Jim, and I believe you. Bones was Dr. McCoy. Well, that's what I thought. And I think that's right. I think both things are correct, right? We're both right, user. Yay! With that, I do need to go. So here again, when we get updates coming in off of this one, off of the boat cases, I will keep you posted. And again, I am working on the closet docket, so I should have that ready to go very soon. So take care, everybody. I hope you have a great day.